up? It's News to Nord, and it's brought to you by The Casino at Canterbury Park, CanterburyPark.com. And you can do, you're feeling the Feld all year round there, right? Poker, blackjack, and table games. You got live racing in play. We have music events, all sorts of cool things going on at Canterbury. So go to CanterburyPark.com. We'll start, of course, with hockey that took place last night. And the way I was kind of summing it, this game was almost too normal, it felt like.
And this one is over. We don't get the official horn. Now we do. Carolina, 4-2 winners in Game 5. They take a 3-2 series lead. And we will talk to you in Sin City. I know they like gold out there, but a big piece of silver is waiting for Carolina.
Yeah, it was last night, 4-2 victory. You got Bussy in net. You got his parents emotional in the stands as the Carolina Hurricanes, Jordan Staal, I think it's 6 goals in 5 games of this series right now. But hopefully, as we continue this conversation, this game felt so much more, I guess, part of the script than the previous 4 did. I guess if that makes sense. It was the first time in the series, getting to the point of this, that a team takes punches and they didn't respond. We saw, I believe it was Game 1, Ehlers with 2 quick goals out of the gates. Vegas pops back into the mix. You saw that Marner with the hat trick. Okay, now the Canes come charging. And they didn't have it last night. The Vegas Golden Knights did not. You get the 4-1 lead. Carter Hart, as good as he's been throughout these playoffs, he's given up 4 or more goals in every single game. The goaltending has not been good enough for the Vegas Golden Knights. And so now an opportunity this weekend on Sunday to punch back in the 7-0-2. But my goodness, first time in the series that one team actually felt like they had their thumb on it.
Well, a couple of things here. First, sadly, former Wild coach Bruce Boudreau has to be a late scratch. He has a situation going on with somebody right now. So prayers for that person.
Yes.
And Bruce probably will join next week. So that's that with Bruce Boudreau. Secondly, Carolina, from a metric standpoint, I believe was the best defensive hockey team in the NHL. And it wasn't close in the postseason up to the Stanley Cup final. We got 9-goal games. We got 8-goal games. We got there's just a score-a-palooza taking place in some of these games. Something changed last night with both teams where things that were more open became more congested. And I think it involved the ancillary players for both teams. So Stankoven, Hall, and Eden Prairie's Blake. All right, they make up a second line that's been formidable. Well, they couldn't get free last night. So what happens? Aho and what's my man's name who scored the
Svechnikov?
Thank you. And Svechnikov, 2 stars for the team. They hadn't been blowing up the box score during the course of the series. Did last night. And so is that they just pushed through and got over some hump, or the attention went elsewhere to try to slow things down? Because the over-under in the game last night was 6.5. It finished on a 6. And, Hart had his problems. And Bussy, I thought Bussy was very good. Specifically the circumstances through which he's pushing, where having to be a replacement. And, he didn't play for quite some time because of Freddie Anderson going lights out most of the Stanley Cup playoffs. But there were just schematic changes last night that led to more of the type of game you're talking about.
Yeah.
The racehorse hockey was basically eliminated last night.
It was.
And it played into Carolina's hands to a certain extent. But as I'll share with hockey guest du jour next segment, or just Nordo and I talking, in my personal opinion, the whole thing changed last night when Vegas took back-to-back penalties. And one of them was of the 4-minute variety. And then William Karlsson got hurt.
There you go.
And they had to pull him off the penalty kill. He plays all facets of special teams. They had to wait for him through injury up to the postseason. And he's really starting to find stride. William Karlsson is so important to the Vegas Golden Knights. So they go penalty, and then they lose their dog. Well, there's your dagger. That was it. They were just completely different after that.
To the World Cup, best of luck. Mexico won yesterday. They just absolutely housed South Africa 2-0. South Africa, embarrassing performance in Estadio Banorte. We got a little look at where the Vikings will be playing in November. So Mexico won, Korea won. That's cool. It's USA tonight. USA v. Paraguay. It's at 8 p.m., and it's in Los Angeles at SoFi Stadium, even though apparently you're not supposed to call it SoFi. But the United States will play at 8 o'clock. We'll get to see Canada in the mix, too. It's a matinee game, 2 p.m. in Toronto. They are playing Bosnia and Herzegovina. But check it out. And as a personal note, watch parties around town. I mean, downtown's going to be nuts and at places throughout the metro. But I'm hosting a watch party at B52 in Invergrove Heights tonight for USA v. Paraguay. Again, kickoff at 8 p.m. Cool beer special, stuff like that. But rooting on the red, white, and blue. You don't have to be a hardcore to get into this and have a little Friday night party rooting for Team USA. But the Americans favored to get out of this group to the knockout stage. It starts with finding a W tonight. I think it's very important that United States get out of here this evening with 3 points, beat Paraguay, and move on to Australia a week from now. To the NBA, we did chat a bunch with it in terms of Double T, Trent Tucker, during the first hour, and that'll be podcastable shortly after the show. Elite insight from an alum. How about that? I wonder if Double T will find his way to MSG if San Antonio staves off elimination and you get a Game 6 back at the Garden. I think Double T, I mean, it looks like, I know there was an issue years ago. Was it Oakley and Dolan, the owner? There was some frustration there. What I've seen, though, in more recent times, like Dolan, whether he learned from that or maybe we didn't get the whole story there, they treat their alumni pretty darn well, and everybody's coming out to party right now to be a part of this thing. It'd be cool if the professor of hoopology found his way to MSG to watch a half-century-long drought go bye-bye for the Knicks.
Time and time again, if Double T wants into Madison Square Garden for the Knicks to win a championship, they will make way for Double T to be Trent Tucker to join the Covenant. Because I've seen some of the names of Knicks alum that are getting really good seats, comped by the Knicks. That's fine. That's great. It's James Dolan's money. But, like, Trent Tucker is so much more Knicks immortality than Chris Dudley. And Chris Dudley's been to at least a couple of games. So the worst thing for Chris Dudley is for Trent Tucker to want to travel to Madison Square Garden to go to what would be the final Knicks home game of the season. And that would be which game? 6?
Game 6.
Yeah, Game 6. Because then Dudley's going to lose his spot. So if Double T, there was Latrell Sprewell, Anthony Mason. Just so many are there, and they should be. This is a joyous moment.
Well, how about Carmelo Anthony sitting there saying, I was telling them that they weren't going to block out, that the offensive rebound was there. I was telling those guys.
Yep, and then you watch Jalen Brunson right after the game when it wasn't Melo running up to him being like, hey, JB. No, it was Brunson running to Carmelo to hug him and whisper in his ear whatever he whispered.
He's got equity.
Because Jalen grew up watching Carmelo Anthony as a Knick, as a Nugget. And when Carmelo would steal the show, and like Jalen probably shot by himself in the middle of nowhere, being like, I'm going to pretend like I'm Carmelo Anthony.
Yeah.
So that stuff's so cool, man. I love that.
No, it is cool. So Saturday night, we need the Spurs to win to force a Game 6 so that Double T
That'd be sweet.
Can go back there and watch his favorite, a team he played for and one of his favorites now, win an NBA title. That's News to Nord, brought to you by The Casino at Canterbury Park, CanterburyPark.com for all the details.
Back after this. Scott Burnside is a longtime hockey writer, and we greatly appreciate him joining 9 to noon on short notice. Once again, Bruce Boudreau scheduled to be here, but he had to scratch because of something transpiring in his family right now. So Nordo texted Scott, and here he is at Overtime Scott B via X, and he also has Burnside on hockey. Burnside on Hockey, and you can learn more about that via his Twitter feed. And Scott, a name with which many of us are familiar, joins us now. Scott, Paul Allen, great meeting you, and thanks for helping the radio show.
Absolutely my pleasure, and big shoes to fill, though, as I've known Bruce Boudreau for a long time, so the fact that I've been called up from AAA Evansville to fill in for Bruce, I feel good about it.
Yes,
so,
it's nothing.
And I hope everything's going well with Bruce because he's one of the best.
Well, he's salt of the earth and one of my favorites in all the time that I've been following the Minnesota Wild doing this radio show. But nothing imminent, nothing urgent, nothing over the top gloomy. But if you know him that well, do text him when we get done with this conversation. Now, Carolina takes a 3-2 lead in the Stanley Cup final last night. Game 6 is Sunday in Las Vegas. Scott, you know more about hockey than me. I just formulated kind of a grandiose opinion, and I either want you to validate it or tell me what you think. I thought the game got away from Vegas last night when they took those back-to-back penalties, and then Karlsson got hurt. It was just bam, 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 and then all of a sudden Carolina ran away. What do you think?
Yeah, no, I think you've hit the nail on the head. Game 5 a little bit different than the first 4 games, which of course we've seen all kinds of crazy swings in the score, a lot more wide open hockey. I know the announcers on both sides of the border covering the series have talked about the 2-0 lead is never safe, and of course Vegas at one point in this series blew a 4-0 lead before winning in double overtime on Saturday night. But Game 5 to me was a little bit more what I think a lot of people expected. 2 very good, well-coached, disciplined defensive teams, scratching and clawing for some open space. And I think you're absolutely right. Carolina's power play, which had been dormant through the first 3 rounds of this playoff season, has suddenly come to life against Vegas. And the Golden Knights didn't help themselves. They took a series of undisciplined penalties, the Braden McNabb penalty that led to the first power play goal, coming on the heels of another penalty kill, and then a 4-minute minor in the third period when Vegas was desperate to stay close in the game, and Captain Mark Stone gets whistled for high sticking, and an errant high stick on Jalen Chatfield, but still, a careless use of his stick. It cost the Golden Knights 4 minutes off the clock, and it cost them deeply with Andrei Svechnikov's second power play goal of the game. So, yes, Carolina gets some productivity from a couple of players in Sebastian Aho and Svechnikov. Both those guys have really struggled in the final, and so for both of those players to score critical goals, again, I think it shows Carolina's depth, but it also shows, the fine line that separates success and failure in this series. It's I think it's one of the greatest final series, certainly since the 04-05 lockout. It's been totally compelling, and it'll be interesting to see what Vegas has left in the tank as they try and force Game 7 Sunday night at home when the Stanley Cup will be in the building, or at least nearby, at least till later in the game.
Scott, when it comes to William Karlsson, and this is off Torch Presser following the game, how much, from your standpoint, your vantage point, do you believe it messes with lines and special teams when a key guy like Billy Karlsson gets hurt at this stage of the equation?
Yeah, no, and in fact, if you go back and watch the broadcast and you see the look on John Tortorella's face when he realizes that William Karlsson, midway through the second period, looked like an arm or wrist or shoulder injury, he sort of clutched himself and had to skate across the ice at Lenovo Center to get to the dressing room, and it doesn't sound like he's going to be available, certainly in Game 6, maybe not for the rest of the series. But, when you look at how he's changed this Vegas lineup since he's come back in, he's been injured. He only played 14 regular season games, so was hurt early in the regular season. He came back. He's played in the last 15 playoff games, but wasn't ready at the start of the playoffs. But once he came into the lineup, he moved back into his natural position as a center. It allowed Mitch Marner to play on the wing and it has really changed how John Tortorella has been able to assemble his lineup. And again, it's self-evident, but without Karlsson in that lineup, it affects the center depth. It doesn't allow Marner to play where he's most effective on the wing, even though he can play some center. It really is a huge blow. And William Karlsson, again, an original Vegas Golden Knight, he's a versatile player. He's such a smart and responsible player that it really does change how the Golden Knights are going to look moving forward. Again, when you're in a situation where you have to win, as the case will be on Sunday night in Vegas, John Tortorella is likely to shorten his bench anyway, but certainly now the depth up front is going to be tested without William Karlsson. So it's definitely a blow to a Vegas team that does look a little bit fatigued now, and certainly since the Canes have changed their goaltending, Carter Hart simply has been he has been very average. He's allowed 4 goals in every game in the Stanley Cup final. That's not going to get it done. So yes, it does seem like the odds are stacked a little bit against Vegas as they go home, but I think this series has taught us that we should never assume anything, and what we think we know is probably not going to be correct.
Well, with what you just said about Carter, and let's unpack that a little bit, because Tortorella was asked after the game if he considered going to Adin Hill when the Hurricanes opened up 3. And he said some other stuff, but, quote, "It's the stupidest question I've ever heard," end quote. So Adin Hill hasn't played in more than 2 months. Does that, in essence, make it a dumb question?
Well, yeah, I guess I don't think there are any dumb questions at this stage. And when you watch how the Carolina Hurricanes and Rod Brind'Amour and his coaching staff have approached their own goaltending situation in bringing in Brandon Bussi, who hadn't played in 2 months. Yep. And now the difference for Brandon Bussi is that he came in after the Carolina Hurricanes were trailing 4-0. Bussi came in, was very good. He stopped Mitch Marner penalty shot. Carolina comes back to tie. They lose in double overtime on a crazy carom off the end board. And then Bussi comes back and he starts in games 4 and 5. I think if John Tortorella was going to move away from Carter Hart, his window to do that was a game or 2 ago. And again, I think it's a fair question. Why not go to Adin Hill in the third period in Game 5, unless there is just the feeling that this is the best path forward for Vegas, that to bring Adin Hill in doesn't offer any significant upgrade. Now, if this series ends on Sunday night and if Carter Hart has another soft game, again, this isn't blaming Carter Hart for Vegas trailing 3-2, but he's allowed 4 goals in every game. And the same dynamic that existed with Frederik Andersen and led to the goaltending change is that he simply could not make the critical stop at the critical time. Carter Hart has not been able to do that, certainly in the last couple of games and really throughout this series. But now the goaltending advantage lies squarely with Carolina Hurricanes, and you're almost at that point now where you're almost too late to change that dynamic. You have to hope that Carter Hart has something better left in the tank. I would suggest from body language and level of play that ship may have sailed. But there will be enough questions if this series ends in 6 in favor of Carolina. I think there'll be legitimate questions about the decision to stick with Carter Hart throughout this series.
Scott Burnside, 9 to noon. And Carter Hart's save percentages this series, like this. Last night, 833. Then 852, 879, 846, and 862. I mean, lots of 8s in there, man. I mean, and it's the Stanley Cup final. You got lots of 8s in there. And you mentioned it. He's allowed at least 4 in every game. So I can see that factoring into the reporter's question, which I didn't think was dumb. Especially given what you said. I mean, Brandon hadn't played for 2 months, and Brind'Amour had the wherewithal to dust him off and use him because, I mean, Freddie Andersen wasn't even in uniform a couple of games ago, but How much of a gutsy move was that for Rod Brind'Amour going to Boosie?
Yeah, no, I really, again, this is the great, the great moments in what has been an epic series. To make that decision again, there was a lot of debate going into Game 4. Whether Rod Brind'Amour would go back to Frederik Andersen. He's been a huge supporter of Andersen, veteran player. My goodness, his play through the first 3 rounds, with the exception of a Game 1 lopsided loss to Montreal in the Eastern Conference Final. And Frederik Andersen has done everything the Canes asked him to do, but he wasn't overtaxed in terms of the number of shots, and he looked a little out of sorts. Certainly as this final series started, he looked like a guy that the team could not count on to provide a critical save at a critical moment. And I think the decision to go to Brandon Boosie as a starter for the last 2 games, I mean, from the outside now, in hindsight, it looks like it should have been an easy decision. I doubt that it was. To me, what's interesting, though, is that, and you alluded to it, Frederik Andersen is not even the backup now. It's almost as though Rod Brind'Amour feels it's important that the team separate itself entirely from Andersen. He's nearing the end of his contract. I feel a bit badly for Freddie Andersen if this is how it ends for him in Carolina. But the fact that Pyotr Kochetkov, who hasn't played since December, has been the backup goalie in the Stanley Cup final the last 2 games, I think tells you about the symbolic nature of the transition to Boosie. It's not like Freddie Andersen is waiting and maybe he can, he'll come in if Boosie isn't sharp. This is Boosie's team now. The evidence, supports all of that. Andersen is in street clothes. He's not even skating with the team. Apparently skated ahead of the team before Game 5. So it's really a fascinating decision by the coaching staff, not just on making the goaltending switch, but then also in how the team lineup went after that, and the complete separation from Andersen. Boosie is such a great story, had a great season, didn't play well after the Olympic break, lost his starting job to Freddie Andersen, but boy, what a great story for him to come in and the only goaltender in NHL history to play his first 2 playoff games in the Stanley Cup final and win both of them. So what a story if he can close out the deal Sunday in Vegas.
Boosie was a waiver claim from Boston 11 months ago. I mean, that just shows you the quirky nature of how things turn out, sometimes in serendipitous fashion. This is Scott Burnside. Overtime Scott B via X. Start there. Overtime Scott B. You recognize the name for years, if not decades. Really, really good discussing and writing about hockey. And he has Burnside on hockey. You can sign up for that, too, via his Twitter feed at Overtime Scott B. Couple of quickies to close here. Jordan Staal. What's gotten into Jordan Staal? He's almost 38 years of age, and he scored again last night. Staal became the first player since 1956 to score at least a single goal in each of the first 5 games of the Stanley Cup final. The last was Jean Beliveau for Montreal. What's gotten into Jordan Staal?
Yeah, well, I mean, you talk about the great storylines that exist in the Stanley Cup final, and I'm not sure you'll find one more heartwarming than the play of Jordan Staal in this final series. As you point out, 6 goals, scored in every single game. And as a captain, we often talk in cliches about, leading by example and not words but deeds and all those kinds of things. And I'm fortunate I've known Jordan for a long time. Of course, covered him in this series when he won a cup in Pittsburgh in 2009, and then traded to join his brother in Carolina and becoming the captain under the former captain, Rod Brind'Amour, who, of course, has been the coach since the 18-19 season. And there's just something about Jordan Staal that is solid and impressive, and how well regarded he is by the rest of the team, how important he is in that community, and to see him really elevate his game and to provide crucial moments, not just the goals. I mean, he's been a beast in the face-off circle. He helps kill penalties on one of the best penalty-killing teams in the NHL. it really has been a virtuoso performance for a player in the twilight of his career. And it certainly sparked a lot of debate if this series does end in Vegas on Sunday, or if it comes back to Carolina for Game 7 on Wednesday and Carolina prevails. Is Jordan Staal the Conn Smythe Trophy winner? Is he going to be the playoff MVP? And I think, even though his point totals don't stack up historically to what other Conn Smythe Trophy winners have, certainly he's well behind Mitch Marner, the playoff scoring leader right now for the Vegas Golden Knights. I do think that Jordan Staal will be a worthy playoff MVP, and it really is an inspirational performance, what we've seen from him in this final series.
All right, Scott, lastly, kind of the same question with Vegas former fourth liner Brett Howden. I know he's on the second line now, but he cut his teeth as a fourth liner. And even this season, he scored 12 goals all of regular season, has 14 in the Stanley Cup playoffs. What do you think leads to a player going from 0 to 100 with the goal scoring in such a short period of time?
Yeah, no, that's a great thing about the Stanley Cup playoffs, isn't it? That players, like a Brett Howden can emerge and become something different than maybe what fans expected, and maybe what the players themselves expected, from a regular season or even a whole career where, they haven't risen to this level. And I think part of it is opportunity. He's played some with Mitch Marner. I know he's talked a lot about learning how to play the game and the high hockey IQ that Mitch Marner has, and how some of that has maybe rubbed off on him. And certainly the opportunity he's had, with John Tortorella taking over with 8 games left in the regular season for Bruce Cassidy, and Brett Howden, maybe a breath of fresh air in terms of his relationship with the coaching staff and the confidence they've had in him. What's really so impressive about his offensive output, he's scored multiple times shorthanded. He makes this team dangerous in all situations. It's one of those stories that, you're right. It's hard to say, well, where did this come from, or how did this happen? Could anyone have seen this coming? And I think the bottom line is probably not. And maybe not even Brett Howden would have seen this coming or expected this from himself. But certainly, I know for Vegas fans, it's been a treat to watch him maybe shake off stereotypes or imagining, his own limitations as a player, and to become such an important part of a Vegas team that has, 2 wins away from a Stanley Cup championship.
Well, Scott, that was fantastic. Thank you very much for joining the radio show on super short notice. I'm gonna put in my email address for Burnside on Hockey. Hopefully, many in the listening audience do too. You can start at Overtime Scott B via X. I really, really enjoyed that, and look forward to chatting again. Have a good day.
Yeah, anytime.
Yep, see you, bud. Scott Burnside on the Carolina Canes beating Vegas last night. It's post time for the post game next.
This is 9 to noon.
Well, we have bow hunting Burnsy and Boomeister covering Burnsy in the Covenant now. Nice save there, Nordo, with the hockey segment. And Scott Burnside, who knew?
More Burnsies, the better, in my opinion. And Scott, he's so good. No, I really enjoyed that segment. It was cool to have Scott on, and it was a save in some respects, but hoping that everything's good, of course, with Gabby, and maybe we can catch up with him next week. To the post game, thanks again to Denard Span for joining, podcastable in just minutes via the free iHeartRadio app. But we had to, and I know it was vocal maintenance yesterday, but now that you're back in the saddle, we had to have Trent Tucker on to explain just how did things get so wrong for those Spurs as they coughed up that 29-point lead the other night?
I think the lack of direction from the coaching staff cost this team game number 5. When you have a 29-point lead and then you have the most unguardable guy in the game, and there's no reason for you to continue to take 3-point shots and to play a fast-paced game. Because in that situation, the Knicks need 2 things to have a chance to come back. They need time and possession. And the faster you play and the quicker you shoot, you allow them to have those 2 things to put themselves in a situation maybe to get back into the game like they did and then win coming down the stretch. So I would put this more on the San Antonio's coaching staff not managing the game the right way to finish the thing off for the San Antonio Spurs.
And I'm glad Trent went that route in particular because everyone's focusing on De'Aaron Fox and the layup, and he should have just dribbled it out, gotten to the line. You can focus on Wemby missing those 2 free throws. There are many things you can look at. Still, by the way, needed an unbelievable tip from OG to get it done if you're looking on the Knicks side.
Right.
Mitch Johnson had an opportunity for timeouts in spots. Mm-hmm. He had an opportunity to bring those guys together during a TV break and just be like, guys, these 3-pointers that we're shooting with 18 seconds left in the shot clock, this is just unacceptable and dumb. We got to go back to what we do. We got to slow this thing down. And he didn't do it. So it was a learning experience for Mitch.
I can't say he didn't do it.
Didn't do it, but it didn't materialize on the court. Yes, did not resonate in the moment.
I mean, because now's the time. Do I believe the Spurs can win the series? Yeah. Do I believe the Spurs will win the series? No. Why? Because they're immature. The coaching staff is immature. The players, when I say immature, I don't mean negatively. I mean, they just lack experience and maturity.
They're kids.
Kids at a time. So they're going to do something again at the worst time that's going to lack experience, and it's going to cost them the series. But they're I'd be careful, these slings and arrows that are being shot at the San Antonio Spurs right now for mistakes that have taken place that are clear. Those are clear mistakes.
A year from now, if they don't make those mistakes, this is a 4-game freaking sweep with some of the talent they have around.
Let's not just go a year from now. I mean, they're an NBA Finals factor for the next 3, 4, 5 years.
Yeah.
And they will grow, they will learn, and they're going to continue to be a handful.
To Alec Lewis of The Athletic in studio, just kind of trying to sum up, good times, bad times, ups and downs, ins and outs of this QB competition that no one has seemed to run away with quite yet.
There's things that I'd say stick out with both guys, and I really don't feel like I'm both sidesing it to just be like, I can see some strengths, I can see some weaknesses, and you got to hope that at some point there is a clear separator that does ignite this team the way that they want to ignite it. And wanted to ignite it with this entire competition in the first place.
So it's Kyler Murray, it's J.J. McCarthy, and then there's Carson.
Yeah.
And then there's Carson Wentz.
So if you, I mean, we talked out minicamp, Vikings quarterbacks off season, get you ready for training camp for about 40 minutes.
Yeah.
It's a deep, rich, compelling talker because we can only go off what we know. And if I were to recommend a place to go, KFAN.com, 9 to noon podcasting, 9 to noon on demand, the 10 to the 10:45 spot with Alec joining the show, I definitely would listen back to that.
Yeah, and I'm glad to you guys in particular, just to kind of dovetail on that. You guys hit on the idea of whether it's inside, it's outside. KO couldn't step to the podium and lie to you about kind of the status of this competition, that it is more of a real, honest competition maybe than even people like myself, the way I would frame it. It's an unintentionally rigged game bringing Kyler in here. Well, in the end, Kyler's got to show up and make the plays. So the next 6 weeks, you mentioned his run game and just how that will impact things once the pads come on. It was an awesome hour with Alec Lewis. And then, of course, Scott Burnside. Burnside on hockey. Getting to hear his thoughts just last segment on the NHL Final Cup Series, and just Carolina with a massive opportunity in their hands, some struggling in the net on the other side, the impact of Carlson's injury. It was a fun Friday feast, PA. It was a fun Friday feast indeed.
Thoroughly enjoyed it, and we thank you for the good times. Everybody have a wonderful weekend. May God bless you and all of your families. On behalf of Eric Nordquist, I'm Paul Allen. That's 9 to noon at FM 100.3 KFAN. Dan Cole, the Common Man. And the program is next. And I think we have a big password competition today. So make sure you listen to Common around the corner. Thank you for listening to us. Bye.
And one more time, B-52 in Inver Grove Heights tonight, a World Cup watch party. I'll be at B-52 in Inver Grove Heights for Team USA and Paraguay. 8 p.m. kickoff, beer specials, prizes. Let's go red, white, and blue. Thanks for listening to The Fan. Have an awesome weekend.
If it's good news or money, leave a message.
Podcast today's Paul Allen Show, or listen back to previous show and interviews by going to the iHeartRadio app or KFAN.com.
From the 1-800-ASK-GARY